Deep thoughts.
Welcome everybody to Deep Thoughts. Disclaimer before I start, of course, these are just my own thoughts. They're not the thoughts of anybody else, and they're not the thoughts of anybody else on the CanHammer team. So, the purpose of Deep Thoughts is to generate discussion, so generate your discussion below. So today's topic is on the issue of points level for competitive play. So I'm not talking about casual play. Casual game, you play whatever points you want. I don't care. Play 1,000, can be quite fun to play small games. 3,000, Apocalypse, whatever you want. That's not the topic of tonight's discussion. Tonight's discussion is for tournament competitive play. What should be the points level? So clearly the ITC polls over and over again have shown that people want to stay at 1850, yet the game is getting bigger and bigger. There's more and more factions and detachments, more and more things that give you free points. A lot of armies these days are giving you more than, let's say you're playing 1850 Lion's Blade, you're actually playing probably well into 2,200 points. And similar with other armies like Warcon or whatever. Then you've got demons who start at 1850 and generate another 1,000 points throughout the game. What is the right points level? Well, I guess that's influenced by a few things, and I can understand all sides of the argument. So some people argue that they want to play higher points, so 1850 or maybe even 2,000 or more, because then they get to use larger formations, they get to use more of the models that they love and paint and love putting on the table. And I can understand that. You know, I own a Mastodon. Anything less than 1850, there's no way I could field it, and that's a shame. And you know, Magnus is 650 points. That's only 50 less than a Mastodon. If you're playing like 1,500 points, it's going to be hard pressed to field a Magnus there. So, you know, I can see that argument for keeping the points value up. I can see the other argument. So the argument for going down, 1,650, 1,500, probably the two most common batted around numbers, and there are some tournaments who run at that level. You know, you have to make tough choices. So, you know, I'm preparing for a 1,500 point tournament. I can't take my Lion's Blade and Riptide Wing. Riptide Wing's 555 points. I can't run that with a Lion's Blade, so I'm just going to play pure Lion's Blade. You have to make tough choices when you have to cut down parts of the army. You have to. It does give a slight advantage to those armies that give free stuff. So my Lion's Blade at 1,500 points is probably closer to 1,700 or 1,800. So that's a distinct advantage that you can get. There are arguments that some armies like Warcon can't even fit in 1,500 just because of the requirements for those detachments. So you're excluding certain armies. But the big argument for going down in points really is that people are not finishing their games. And I have certainly experienced that in the tournaments I've been to. One game I played against a new player who wasn't that experienced but was playing demons. We didn't even get to the end of turn 3 because most of the time was taken up trying to figure out psychic powers and things like that. And so I can definitely see that side. And it's kind of a bad feeling to lose a game or to win a game just because you ran out of time, and the game probably would have been very different if it had gone to its natural conclusion, which is at least turn 5, maybe turn 6 or turn 7. There's a lot of armies that kind of outlast you and get good at the end of the game. Probably maybe Battle Company is one of them. Maybe like Eldar prefers to sort of wait to the last minute to jump on things. And then there's armies that strike right at the beginning and don't last that long. So Alpha Strike armies. So, you know, different, but generally to get the full feel of the game, you should have it to its natural conclusion. That's how the game was designed. And so to have lots of games not going to that is a big argument for lowering the points. Now, the people who argue against lowering the points, and their main arguments are, well, don't play an army that you can't finish a game in 2.5 hours. Sure, that's a fair argument. But there's 2 players, and there's lots of other factors involved in a game, and you could be very good and still not finish a game, especially if the other player is playing that. And why should you tell somebody what they can't or can't play? This is a hobby. It's their hobby as much as yours, and they want to bring this army of 1,000 orcs to the table, and maybe they can't play it in time. So there's always that kind of commentary going back and forth of if you can't do it, then don't bring it, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's the people's games, and they can play whatever they want. So I don't know. The other argument is using things like chess clocks, or timing the turns, but then what? Like, you just disqualify people? Like, you're not going to get people to turn up to tournaments. And then the final argument is that practice. If you're going to play this army, practice till you can play it in 2.5 hours. Sure, but at the end of the day, it's a well-known fact that the majority of people who go to tournaments are not hardcore, going to play once a week sort of guys. There's guys who spend one time a month maybe playing a game, and they may not ever get that good at it that they can play a WarCon in 2.5 hours against somebody else who also has a long list. So that might never happen. And so if you suddenly tell those people that screw off out of my tournaments, then you're not going to have a tournament scene. So there has to be some compromise on both sides, and probably, in my belief, I think we lie anywhere between 1650 and 1850. I think 1500 is a little bit too small, but 1850 is maybe a little bit too large for some armies and some players. And I don't think the solution is making the rounds longer either, because then you have less rounds and your tournament results mean less. So I'd rather play more rounds of shorter games than longer rounds of large games, because it's mentally draining. Ask anybody who went to the LVO. You ask Dan Platt what 9 games of 40K over 3 days felt like. So I think probably the sweet spot lies somewhere in there, unless the game changes drastically in the next edition, which it might. So who knows? I guess we just have to hang on and see what happens. Unfortunately, a lot of things, because of the rumors of the next edition coming out, a lot of things are kind of on hold right now, and maybe that's a topic for another Deep Thoughts, but that's certainly what my thoughts are on the points level at the moment. So we'll see how things shake out. If you have any comments on this topic, then please discuss below. That's what Deep Thoughts are for. And I'll see you next time.